Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat malam pada semua penonton. So, hari ini kita teruskan webinar kita untuk Borneo Constitutional Rights webinar siri yang kedua pada malam ini. Kita bermula pada 9 malam. Tajuk webinar kita pada malam ini ialah Where is Malaysia Agreement 1963 in Malaysia Legal System? Bagi yang belum subscribe kepada YouTube channel saya iaitu Zulfaqar Saadi, The Constitutionalist, sila subscribe supaya anda tidak akan terlepas live streaming untuk webinar siri yang kedua ini. So, tajuk kita pada malam ini ialah Where is Malaysia Agreement 1963 in Malaysia Legal System? First, let us look at the simple framework on how Malaysia Agreement 1963 has been inserted into the Federal Constitution. First, this is just a simple framework. First, it starts with the Cobalt Commission, which is a report of the Commission of Inquiry, North Borneo and Sarawak, 1962. The term of reference, the objective of Cobalt Commission is to ascertain the view of the people of North Borneo and Sarawak and to make recommendation. That is the term of reference for Cobalt Commission. Saya harap internet okey pada malam ni. Tapi tak. It's okay. We keep continue. After that, after the Cobalt Commission, we have IGC report, which is report of the Intergovernmental Committee 1962. And the objective of the IGC report is to work out the future constitutional arrangement and the form of the necessary safeguards for North Borneo and Sarawak. After Cobalt Commission, after the wishes of the people have been ascertained and make recommendation to form Malaysia, the constitutional arrangement was met during the IGC report. After the IGC report was completed, all the terms in the IGC report, the constitutional arrangement, has been inserted into the Malaysia Agreement 1963. And then, Malaysia Agreement 1963, Malaysia Bill, Annex A, has been passed by the Parliament of the Federation of Malaya on 28 August 1963 by using Malaysia Act 1963 number 26 of 1963. So this Malaysia Agreement has been, the Act of Parliament has been passed to insert Malaysia Bill into the Federal Constitution. Why we need the Parliament of Malaya to pass this Act of Parliament? The answer is so that it has a force of law in Malaysia. You know, international agreement is Malaysia Agreement 1963. So it has a international law, force of law internationally. But it also there need to be a force of law in Malaysia as well, in a national level. So to have a force of law of Malaysia Agreement 1963, also they pass the Act of Parliament, which is Malaysia Act 1963 number 26. And then we have a force of law on which Malaysia Bill has been inserted into the Federal Constitution. the new federal constitution of Malaysia. And then we have Article 8 of Malaysia Agreement 1963, Paragraph 14 of IGC report, and Article 169C of Federal Constitution, on which the terms in IGC report and Malaysia Agreement, if there is any dispute, if there is any new arrangement, or there is some term that is not yet to be inserted in the Federal Constitution, you can use these three force of law. Article 8 of Malaysia Agreement 1963, Paragraph 14 of IGC report, and Article 169C of Federal Constitution to insert this term in IGC report and Malaysia Agreement into the Federal Constitution. And then we want to know how exactly is Malaysia Agreement 1963 has been inserted to Federal Constitution, because we want to know where is Malaysia Agreement 1963 in the legal system of Malaysia. Here, this is the question. How exactly is Malaysia Agreement has been inserted into the Federal Constitution? It was made by using Annex A, which is a Malaysia Bill. In the Malaysia Agreement 1963, and then this Malaysia Bill was passed by using Act of Parliament, by using Malaysia Act 1963 number 26 of 1963 by Parliament of the Federation of Malaya. So it passed in Parliament of Federation of Malaya, and then it's amended a lot of Federal Constitution of Malaya at that time, and then it created a new Federal Constitution of Malaysia. So what is Annex A? As you can see, Annex A is what has been inserted into the Federal Constitution. What is Annex A in Malaysia Agreement 1963? So Annex A is Malaysia Bill. It's called Malaysia Bill. So we have 4 parts in Annex A, which is Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4. In Part 1, it is the title is Preliminary. And then we have Part 2, the States of the Federation. And then Part 3, General Constitutional Arrangement. And then Part 4, Transitional and Temporary. And in Part 3, they have many titles, Title 1 until Title 7. So this is Annex A, which is Malaysia Bill. This is the framework of Annex A of Malaysia Bill. So what is in Annex A? It is Malaysia Bill. We have Part 1 until Part 4. And in Malaysia Bill also, they have 96 sections with 6 schedules and 77 pages. That is Annex A. Very comprehensive, very detailed constitutional arrangement. So now the question is, how Annex A has been inserted into Federal Constitution? So we have Malaysia Agreement 1963. In Malaysia Agreement 1963, we have Annex A, which is Malaysia Bill, will be inserted into the Federal Constitution. So to answer how Annex A has been inserted into the Federal Constitution, you look at Annex A lah. No need to look far. You look at Annex A of the Federal Constitution. What does Annex A say? The first sentence, you look at the note there. It said, in accordance with Section 3 and the first schedule, certain sections are to be inserted in and become articles of the Constitution. Any such section is distinguished in the text of the Act by a marginal note giving its number as an article of the Constitution. The articles in question are listed in order in the first schedule. So based on Annex A Malaysia Bill, it tells us that you need to look at the Section 3 and the first schedule on how Annex A has been inserted into the Federal Constitution. In the first schedule, it tells you the list of the section that will become the article of the federal constitution. This is what, this is how it has section in the Malaysia Agreement has been inserted as article in the federal constitution. You see, Annex A have many section, 96 section. All the all of this section that is listed in the first schedule will be inserted into the federal constitution as article. So the section in Malaysia Agreement 1963 has become the article in the federal constitution. Now we look at section 3. What does section 3 say? The heading is clear. Section of Act inserted in Constitution. So section in the Malaysia Agreement will be inserted in the federal constitution as articles in the federal constitution, in the new federal constitution. So section 3 said the constitution shall be amended as shown in the first schedule to this act by inserting as article to the constitution in accordance with that schedule the section of this act specified in the second column, and those sections shall be read and have effect accordingly. That is section 3. It's referred to us to look at the first schedule. So this is the first schedule. The title of the first schedule is Insertion of New Article in Constitution. This is the first schedule in Malaysia Agreement 1963. On the left is the article of the Constitution of Federation of Malaya. And on the right, second column is the section of the Malaysia Agreement that will amend the Federal Constitution of Malaya, and then it will become a new articles for the Federal Constitution of Malaysia. For those that haven't looked at first schedule of Malaysia Agreement 1963 in Annex A, I show you here. Okay, this is the first schedule of Malaysia Agreement 1963. As you can see, in the left is article of the Federal Constitution of Malaya, and then on the right is the section in the Malaysia Agreement 1963. This new section will amend the Federal Constitution of Malaya, and then it will become a new article in the Federal Constitution of Malaysia. There is a long list here. How many section, how many article in the Federal Constitution of Malaya, it will change to the new article of the Federation of Malaya based on the section in the Malaysia Agreement 1963. You can check at the first schedule of the Malaysia Agreement 1963. So this is the first schedule for the people that haven't looked at it. This is the schedule, very specific. The section that need to be inserted as new articles in Federal Constitution of Malaysia based on the Malaysia Agreement. Directly, specific, detail, even put into a table in a schedule there. Okay, now we go back to the slide. Okay, that is the first schedule. It is in Malaysia Agreement 1963. Please look at it so that you know how the section has been inserted, which section has been inserted, and what kind of section has been inserted, and amend the Federal Constitution of Malaya, and then it become a new Federal Constitution of Malaysia. So the conclusion that we have here, the first conclusion is, all the section in Malaysia Agreement 1963 that has been inserted as articles in the Federal Constitution is Malaysia Agreement 1963. You see, there is 96 section of Malaysia Agreement 1963 has been inserted as article in the federal constitution. So all of this section has been inserted as a new article in the federal constitution is Malaysia Agreement 1963. So that is your first answer. Where is Malaysia Agreement 1963? You read federal constitution. Yes, that is federal constitution. But all the amended, the section that has been inserted into the federal constitution is Malaysia Agreement 1963. You know, people who are asking, where is Malaysia Agreement 1963? They are like Zainal said, you are in a forest and then you ask, where is the tree? You are in a forest and then you ask, where is the tree? The tree is in front of you. In the federal constitution, all the section for Malaysia Agreement that has been inserted as articles in the federal constitution, that is Malaysia Agreement 1963. So some people just cannot look at this that way, even if it is in front of you. Still asking, where is Malaysia Agreement 1963? Now we look at Article 169C of the Federal Constitution of Malaysia. This is about the international agreement. So we look at the international agreement in the Federal Constitution of Malaysia, Article 169C. We look specific to Article 169C. So after we read the Article 169C, so the new reading will become like this. Any treaty, agreement, or convention enter into before Malaysia Day, before Malaysia Day, between Her Majesty or her predecessor or the government of the United Kingdom on behalf of the territories comprised in those states or any of them. Agreement that was made on behalf of the British, on behalf that met by the British on behalf of Sabah and Sarawak and another country, which is Federation of Malaya, shall be deemed to be a treaty, agreement, or convention between the Federation of Malaysia here, Federation of Malaysia, and that other country. And then other country is Federation of Malaya. So we look here. What is the agreement that was signed? Sorry. Okay, now we look here. What is the agreement that was signed before Malaysia Day? First, IGC report. It was agreement made between Britain, Malaya, North Borneo, and Sarawak. There's 4 government there that signed IGC report. It was signed before Malaysia Day, which is 27 February 1963, before Malaysia Day. And then there is another agreement that was signed before Malaysia Day, which is Malaysia Agreement 1963. It was signed on 9 July 1963. So we have IGC report and Malaysia Agreement 1963, agreement that was signed before Malaysia Day. So any agreement that was signed before Malaysia Day is international agreement. And then now we look at the 9th schedule in relation with Article 169C. List 1, Federal List, External Affair, International Agreement, Treaties, Convention with other countries is all under Federal List. External Affair, International Agreement, it is all under Federal List. So the one that have power of international agreement is federal government. Now we look at that Article 169C just now. So any treaty before Malaysia Day, which is IGC report and Malaysia Agreement 1963, is international agreement that was made by the British on behalf of Sabah and Sarawak, and another country is Federation of Malaya. So British signed Malaysia Agreement 1963 on behalf of So I need to it's interfering with my internet. Okay. Okay. Now we look at this Article 169C just now. So agreement before Malaysia Day, which is IGC report, and Malaysia Agreement 1963 is international agreement that was signed by the British on behalf also this the signed by the British also on behalf of Sabah and Sarawak is an international agreement made with the another country with Federation of Malaya. And this signed agreement by the British is deemed to be a treaty or convention between the federation. Now, the obligation of the international agreement 1963 Malaysia Agreement 1963 and IGC report, the obligation on this international agreement has fall to the federation, which is Federation of Malaysia and that other country. Federation of Malaysia and that of other country is Federation of Malaya. So Federation of Malaysia must implement this agreement on behalf of the British for Sabah and Sarawak with Federation of Malaya. We must remember Federation of Malaysia and Federation of Malaya is a different government. So we have a conclusion number 2, which is Malaysia Agreement 1963 is international treaty between North Borneo, Sarawak and Federation of Malaya. And Malaysia Agreement 1963 shall be deemed to be a treaty between Federal Government of Malaysia and Federation of Malaya. So the obligation by the British that signed on behalf of Sabah and Sarawak just now, they transfer that obligation to Federation of Malaysia to implement Malaysia Agreement 1963 and IGC report. Okay, there's some people that are asking this question down here. For the purpose of clause 1 of Article 76, they said, yes, this Article 169C is about international agreement, but is for the purpose of clause 1 of Article 76. So some YB are asking me this. They said something like that. So it is not actually international treaty, they said. So, so first of all, uh, external affair is under federal list. It is under federal government. Clear. What is being detailed out in 169C is that the relationship between the agreement before Malaysia Day, which is my MA63 and IGC report, and its relation with Federation of Malaya, and that obligation has been transferred to Federation of Malaysia to implement. That is the information that the British met in 169C. So international agreement treaty is the responsibility of the federal government. We look at this just now. Federal list. It is under federal government. 1A, 1B. Clear. International agreement is under federal list. And for the purpose of clause 1 and 76 is actually for the parliament to, when the parliament need to implement international treaty that is in relation with the state list. So they make a condition here. For the purpose of clause 1 and 76, it is only tell you that for the state list, for the parliament can have the power over the state list in relation with international agreement, they need to follow this A, B, and C. They can only implement international agreement in relation with state list by fulfilling these 3 conditions. So now you understand why there is a for the purpose of clause 1 of Article 76. International treaty is still under federal list. Article 169C with together with Article 76 1 is for the purpose of detail how the parliament can implement international treaty that has relation with the state list. So, clear. Now, the third question here. Where is Malaysia Agreement 1963 in state constitution? Now we look at the constitution of the state of Sarawak. Where is Malaysia Agreement 1963 in state constitution? We look at Article 47, succession to property. It said, subject to the provision of this article, all properties and assets which immediately before the commencement of this constitution were vested in Her Majesty for the purpose of the colony of Sarawak shall on the commencement of this constitution vest in the state. So any property that was held by the British, by the Her Majesty, by the British government, after formation of Malaysia, all the properties vested to the state. Now, what is the property means? To understand what is the property means in Article 140 in Article 47, we look at Interpretation Ordinance 2005, Chapter 61. This is the Interpretation Ordinance of Sarawak. The properties means A, money goes, and the one that we look here is choose in action. And B, obligation. So what is the choose of action of government of Sarawak, of the Her Majesty of the British? The choose of action is the signing of the Malaysia Agreement. And it become the obligation. And all this obligation, which is in terms of action, choose in action to sign the Malaysia Agreement, is the property of Sarawak. So what is the choose in action? The signing of Malaysia Agreement 1963. So it is part. So Malaysia Agreement is a property of Sarawak. And now you ask, where is Malaysia Agreement in state constitution? Malaysia Agreement is the property of Sarawak. Now we look at another article in state constitution of Sarawak. Rights, liabilities, and obligation. 48, Article 48 of State Constitution of Sarawak, Clause 1. All rights, liabilities, and obligation of Her Majesty in respect of the government of the colony of Sarawak shall, on the commencement of this constitution, become rights, liabilities, and obligation of the state. So all obligation of the British has become the obligation of the state government of Sarawak. That is what it means. So Malaysia Agreement 1963 is the property of Sarawak. Malaysia Agreement 1963 is the property of Sarawak. Because obligation that was held by the British after the formation of Malaysia, now it's become the obligation of the state. So this is the property of Sarawak. Malaysia Agreement now has become the property of Sarawak. So conclusion is, if we look at the state constitution of Sarawak, Malaysia Agreement 1963 is the property of Sarawak. Now, a lot of people said, Malaysia Agreement is void. Who are you to say Malaysia Agreement is void? It is the property, not just the government of Sarawak, it's the whole people of Sarawak on Malaysia Agreement 1963. Property. If you read Article 47 and Article 48 of State Constitution, Malaysia Agreement is our property. You cannot just dish it out. And the obligation to implement this property, to safeguard this property, is the State Constitution of Sarawak. So the State Constitution have the obligation to protect our property. If you have your property, you just left it get still. No, you must protect your property. And our property is Malaysia Agreement 1963. Now, a lot of people I don't know, they confused or ignorance. You must understand this difference. Huh? This difference. We agree with Malaysia Agreement 1963. If you look at the terms in Malaysia Agreement 1963, there is 96 section of Annex A, 6 schedule, and then they have Annex A until Annex K, 11 articles, 235 pages of Malaysia Agreement 1963. We agree with all the terms in Malaysia Agreement 1963. If you read in detail, all the term is good for Sabah and Sarawak and for Malaysia. We agree with Malaysia Agreement 1963, of course. But what we did not agree is the breach of Malaysia Agreement 1963. A lot of people confused with this one. Whoever breached Malaysia Agreement 1963, they are play with our property. We don't agree with breach of Malaysia Agreement 1963, but we agree with Malaysia Agreement 1963. Whatever the breach of Malaysia Agreement 1963, that is what we don't agree. You must know the difference here. If they make amendment to federal constitution, what they do that breach the Malaysia Agreement 1963, that is what not good for us, not good for Malaysia. So we all must know the difference here. Okay, I think that's all for tonight. I give you new information that Malaysia Agreement 1963 is the property of Sarawak. It's the property of the million of people in Sarawak. Jangan ikut sedap mulut saja cakap void void. Who are you to what dismiss my property? Million of people have this property. Okay, if you have any question, I don't think that if you have any question, you can ask and add in the comment below. So it is very clear on how Malaysia Agreement has been inserted in the federal constitution and how actually the federal constitution itself, all the section, 96 section has been inserted as the new article in the federal constitution is actually the Malaysia Agreement itself. All the section for Malaysia Agreement inserted as article in the new federal constitution of Malaysia is the Malaysia Agreement 1963. You know, there is some people are saying we must add in pursuant of Malaysia Agreement 1963. They want to make when Article 1 of the Federal Constitution need to be amended. They said they might want to put the words in pursuant of Malaysia Agreement 1963. This is ridiculous. All the articles, all the 96 section from the Malaysia Agreement 1963 has been inserted in the Federal Constitution, right? It is all made in pursuant of Malaysia Agreement 1963. It is in pursuant of Section 3 of Annex A of Malaysia Agreement 1963. All the section in Malaysia Agreement has been inserted as article in the Federal Constitution in pursuant of the first schedule, in pursuant of Section 3 of Malaysia Agreement 1963. So all the terms in Malaysia Agreement has been inserted as article in Federal Constitution. All this section has become article is Malaysia Agreement 1963. Still you asking, what is in pursuant in Malaysia Agreement? Everything has been inserted in pursuant of Malaysia Agreement 1963. Article 1 has been made, has been inserted. Here you see, Article 1, the name, state and territories of the Federation. Section 4 of Malaysia Act of Malaysia Bill has been inserted as Article 1 of Federal Constitution. So it is already made in pursuant of Malaysia Agreement 1963. So what the point of making a new words in Article 1? It's ridiculous. You see, need to think about that. And if you, that's why we need to understand the mechanism on how Malaysia Agreement, international treaty, has been inserted into the federal constitution so that it has a force of law in the national context, in the domestic law of Malaysia. Okay, I think that's all for me for tonight. Thank you for watching. Can't wait for my next webinar, and I will let you know if I will post it in my Facebook and in my YouTube for my next webinar. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will not miss the next webinar. Assalamualaikum and good night.